My name is Jonathan Gerard, and I've been honored to be invited to participate as one of the three teachers in this Wilmette Institute course on science and religion. I have a bachelor's degree in anthropology and a Master of Arts in teaching English from the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. I also am a Reform rabbi, having studied for 5 years in graduate school in New York City, and I also have a doctorate in psychology, specializing in marriage and family therapy. What does it mean to be a Reform rabbi? A rabbi, as you may well know, is a teacher of Jewish texts and Jewish tradition and Jewish religion. A Reform rabbi is a rabbi who sees the Jewish tradition as progressive, as liberal. That is to say, we look at Jewish texts and Jewish teaching and see in the development of Judaism not a perfect gem that is to be preserved through time, but rather more like a river that flows through history and through cultures, picking up nutrients in the form of new knowledge along the way and incorporating these new learnings into our understanding of how God wants us to live. The original text describing that learning is called the Torah. The literal word means teaching. We think of the Torah as a revelation, but really, the Torah is, while it's the foundation of all Jewish learning, it is in fact just the beginning of Jewish learning, because the Torah is not just a one-directional text from God to the Jewish people, but rather it is a record of a covenant. It's a record of the relationship between God and the Jewish people. And so it has divine input, but it also has human input. Let me give you an example of how that would work, how that understanding illuminates our understanding of Jewish tradition. The Torah has a requirement that we rest on the Sabbath day, that no human being should be required to work 7 days a week his or her entire life. Everyone deserves a day off. Well, how observe this day off? The Torah says that among the ways we observe the Sabbath is not to burn a fire on the day of rest. Well, that was fine for farmers who went to bed at sunset and woke up at sunrise. Well, several hundred years later, when many Jews were living in Jerusalem and in other cities, they didn't have to get up early to milk the cows on the Sabbath day, and so they would stay up late Friday night after the Sabbath had begun at sunset, and they had no light because they couldn't burn a fire. This led them to go back to the Torah and revisit the text about fire, and they found a new meaning in it. They concluded that the Hebrew text didn't mean not to burn a fire on the Sabbath, but rather not to light a fire on the Sabbath, because lighting a fire was work. If they lit a fire just before the beginning of the Sabbath, just before sunset on Friday night, that fire could burn until bedtime, and they would have light in their homes. And this became the origin of the custom of lighting Sabbath candles to welcome the Sabbath on Friday evenings in Jewish homes around the world. Now, what did God mean by this teaching in the Torah? Does God want us not to light a fire or not to burn a fire? How can we know what God thinks? All we can do is apply our own human intelligence to the learning that we have inherited. If a poem can have infinite meaning, if a work of literature can have infinite meaning, if a dream can have infinite meaning, well then surely this holy text of Torah also can have infinite meaning. And so Judaism then is not static. It is not some perfect understanding of how we should think or how we should believe or how we should live. It is rather the beginning of a process that continues and will continue so long as there are Jews. Now, I'm going to be participating in this class as a person who believes in progressive revelation, surely in a way different than Baha'is believe in progressive revelation, and I'll leave it to others to explain that. But I'm going to be participating in this class as a person who has thought a great deal about how we figure out the meaning of life, how we figure out how God wants us to live our lives. And it is this process of search that I hope to bring to my participation in the class, and hope to help you to become engaged in this very same process. Thank you.